Hey there, I'm Neil. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the host and producer of Pause and Rewind, the podcast that chats to changemakers, thought leaders and role models who all share a common goal. They're striving to make the world a more inclusive place. And, let's face it, we need it. Each guest has a unique story when it comes to doing their thing, and we often know who people are in the now, but how much do we really know about them? Pause and Rewind takes a moment to explore the experiences, realisations and relationships in my guest's life that led them to where and who they are now, because everyone loves an origin story. We'll dive into tales, anecdotes and a little of what makes our guest tick. So whether you're here for insights or inspo or simply want to know about your heroes, this podcast is for you. You might never know someone's story, but if you pay attention, you'll hear it, you'll see it and you'll feel it. So, are you ready to pause and rewind? Hey there, and welcome to this episode of Pause and Rewind. During this episode, I'm chatting to someone that I was introduced through a mutual friend of ours, Andrew Flewitt, and that is Luciana Cousin. Luciana is a Brighton-based businesswoman, community builder and entrepreneur, and she's the co-founder of Bobu, which is a guide, a resource, something that many people from businesses and individuals can dive into to advocate for the safety of themselves and others. Bobu exists because too many people stay silent when it matters the most. Too many spaces lose trust because no one speaks up, and everyone pretends everything is fine when it isn't. Bobu exists to change that. Bobu exists to help you reclaim your power in the moments that count. Luciana and I chat loads about LGBTQ plus safety in this episode, but particularly how as queer people we have to often calculate our safety and our existence on a daily basis as we go about life. Luciana co-founded Bobu with her son Nick. We also chat loads in this episode about the community space that Luciana ran in Brighton, which sadly had to close towards the end of last year. And we talk about the trauma that left, but also the hope that Bobu has brought off the back of that, but also the importance of community spaces. Just want to encourage you to take care of yourself whilst listening during today's episode. We do cover some challenging topics around mental health, emotionally abusive relationships, alcoholism, bullying, and more. So yeah, look after yourself whilst listening. Take a break if you need to. But this is a great conversation. Luciana is someone that I have really got to know over the last year, and yeah, totally here for her story. I'm sure you will be too. Here it is. Luciana, welcome to Pause and Rewind. It is so lovely to see you.
Thank you, Neil. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, well, absolute pleasure to have you. And I'm going to start with the question that I ask everyone, and that is, what does the world look like for Luciana Cousin right now?
It looks a little bit wobbly.
Okay.
A little bit wobbly. Coming out of a very traumatic time where we had to close down the restaurant. So sort of rebuilding, and it's been a long journey. It's been a year and a half of absolute changes and stuff, but at least now there's, I don't want to say light at the end of the tunnel, but there's a glow. It's there, and we can actually see the end of it. So yeah.
Are you happy for those listening to just shed a little bit of light on the restaurant and the space you had to close down, and then perhaps kind of how it came to that? Because I think it's really important for people to understand that protected spaces, and we're going to go on to talk about Bobu, which is really exciting, and I imagine that's giving you a lot of strength to get through some of what you've experienced. But I think what you have experienced with the having to closing down of such a special space is that people need to be aware that community spaces are sacred. They need to be constantly nurtured and protected and championed. So if you're happy to give a little bit of light on that.
Yes, absolutely. So arcobaleno, which I have been asked why arcobaleno, it's the word is rainbows in Italian. And I know it's a mouthful. And myself and Nick is my son, we opened arcobaleno because we wanted the place that we didn't have growing up, especially myself, and a place where you could just go, no masking, no performative stuff, just be yourself. Also wanted to create a space for emerging queer voices so we had this stage where people could just, whatever they wanted to do. We had microphones, just go do your stuff. And also with like drag queens and stuff, I used to feel so bad that they'd be changing like in stairwells and toilets. So we had this whole lovely setup for them. And and we had good food, because a lot of places I'd been to were either very clinical or very sleazy. So we wanted somewhere that was really pretty and nice. And as a matter of fact, we sort of went on the theme of no place like home and all. So that was, but what I found was the 2.5 years were great. But when you create a space, you have to also realize that people will come, the community will build, but we weren't a pickup joint. We weren't, our cocktails were really good. I mean, amazing cocktails. But, it was very, I don't know how to explain it, because when we closed, people were really upset about it. But at the same time, the people who we gave the chance to be on the stage and all of that, they never came back. They'd go to like some straight place for them for their evenings out. So I always wondered, why would you not support a safe LGBTQ space? So I don't know, but then it became like this perfect storm: energy prices, VAT, and it just got to the point where I realized when we were doing, it was September of last year, and we were doing the projections for January, that literally we would have to sell beer for about £10. And with the kind of the people we had, that was never going to fly. And that was when I made the decision that we just had to close.
Yeah.
So it did work. The math didn't quite work, because you always, I mean, it at the end of the day, it's business is business. But the one thing that I think took me a long time to get over was that I felt like I failed, because financially I did, but the space worked. And I think I live in Brighton, so there are other queer spaces, but I think for the people we were catering to, there isn't anything like it. And I think it was maybe before its time or after its time. I don't know.
Really beautiful that you're able to reflect on that, and of the fact that yes, financially and on a business level, it just didn't work, but the joy that it brings. I mean, I've heard you speak about it on our lovely mutual friend Andrew Flewitt's podcast.
Yes.
I've read your story in Andrew's book as well, and so I think it's really beautiful that you're able to reflect on that. What has moving on and healing look like in terms of what you've taken from the experience?
I think first I got paralyzed. I was like, I couldn't move. then I watched a lot of really rubbish shit TV. Like, I became like the biggest fan of the Real Housewives. I could tell you everything about them. And then, but we always had Bobu. So Bobu was created as signing up venues to become safe spaces. And the original thing was, a friend of ours was out with his boyfriend in Brighton and got attacked in a bar. And when he left, he couldn't see what was going to be a place he could go and ask for help. Yeah. And he went to a couple of places, and there were security guards at the door, and they said, "Oh, we can't help you." And the reason for that is because they would have had to report to the police, and then the venue would be they say, "Oh, this happened here, so this is why they won't help." I think they're trying to change that. And I thought, this is really a problem, because where do you go if you need help? So this is how Bobu started. And all we're doing, we're just giving literally stickers door to door, just saying, especially LGBT, if someone comes in, it's really difficult for us to ask for help. But if they see this here, they know they're welcome. And then it's evolved from that, because it went from venues. And then we realized that we need to take control of our own safety. We're always calculating. We have so many policies, but we're always calculating. And it's that calculating, I think, that makes us always feel like, oh, can I do this? Can I hold my partner's hand? Do I need to tone it down to go on the train? Constant calculation. And so that's why we then created the Bobu shift, which gets you through that, and you're actually able to make decisions with clarity.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
That calculation comes at so much mental exhaustion cost when you think in terms of travel, when you think in terms of kind of like the way you navigate spaces and move around towns, and just the physical and mental exhaustion from it alone. How would you describe Bobu? Like, if you had to describe it in a few words for people and why they should buy into it, because when I read the about Bobu thing, Bobu gives you the tools and courage to show up emotionally, socially, and physically when it matters most. We help you say, I'm here, I matter, I'm ready. That is so powerful. Just those few words, it's so powerful. How would you describe it to people in terms of the service it offers, and why should people take the time? Because I think we're going through an age of kind of digital exhaustion, right? There's so many different things to buy into, and so why is it so important that people do support your work and use it as a tool?
Can I be really honest?
For sure.
I got to the point where I said enough is enough. We, as a community, LGBT community, we still haven't gotten past this less than. And this is why I'm on about the calculating. We're constantly calculating. As successful as people are, we're constant. And I was talking to Nick and I said, but why? Why is this always happening? So what we wanted was to create something that was really simple, that you can remember it, because I have a problem remembering stuff. But it's, so that we don't need to shrink anymore. It's the shrinking. And this comes from very lived experience of always shrinking, trying to make yourself feel smaller, make yourself smaller. Don't be make sure that everyone around you is comfortable. I thought, why do we do this? What is the point of this? Because nothing, all these decades, all these policies, HR, posters, nothing matters. At that moment, it's about you. You need to stand up and you need to go, yeah, I'm here, I'm taking care of this. Because in reality, we have safety drills for fire. We have safety drills for CP. We do safety practice CPR, but we don't have any practice for when someone makes a homophobic remark. There's no practice for that. Nobody knows what to do. So that's why we thought we're going to change all of this. And so Bobu in a nutshell is, I think it's more than it's saying enough. We're here. We're not going anywhere. And we're going to take back our safety. Because also, when you walk into a space and you see the security guard, you go, yep, I'm safe. Or if you go, go to work, there's HR, okay, they got me. But it doesn't work that way, because that moment when somebody says something, when you laugh at a joke that you shouldn't have, and that smallness starts happening, you've lost the control. You're on autopilot at that point. So that's what Bobu does. It helps you identify just before that happens, and then you've got these tools and stuff, very simple, to be able to stay in the moment and stay present.
What's been the feedback like so far from people that have engaged with it?
Good, very good, very good. I mean, I think it's what our biggest challenge is that, and I don't want this to sound like I'm whining or anything, but because I lost so much money with Arco, it's like we do everything ourselves. So everything takes so long. Social media is like my nightmare.
I hear you. I often talk about when you are like yourself, right? A community organizer, an entrepreneur, an innovator, a businesswoman, right? When you manage all those different things yourself, like for me with my Sober Rave, the House of Happiness, my podcast, when you have to produce and create yourself, the social media is such a creative drain on the whole process.
It really is. And then because you don't know really how it's going to land.
There's no rhyme or reason.
No, nothing. And this fucking algorithm. What is it about?
The fucking algorithm, indeed. Yes, I hear you.
I mean, I don't know. It's just sometimes I think I can't do this anymore. So I do take breaks from it, but that's our problem. And so our challenge is raising awareness. We want to raise more and more awareness, because So I think you know that we were up in Newcastle, which is a lovely place, by the way, doing the Safer to Be Me summit, and we presented this there, and it was so exciting to see people actually doing the Bobu shift, and it was like, oh my God, this is good, you know. So it was slowly, it will get out there, you know. I mean, just I don't know what it's going to take, but we'll keep trying because I think it helps people so much. And for me, it's, you know, when people don't go out because they're afraid, or people, you know, hold back on themselves because they don't feel comfortable or safe, that is heartbreaking for me, because I think no one should have to live like that.
No, no, and unfortunately we do, and I think you touched on it earlier. We have these supposed systems in place,
Mm.
be that the police, be that security, be that HR, and they are just not equipped to support marginalized people in 2025
Which is really,
against this divisive backdrop that we're facing.
and then again, you know, if you go back into LGBT history, I mean, it started out criminals, mental patients, and in the 2000s, it became, you know, the policies were in place and everything, but yet we're still calculating.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, we went from you don't exist to, yeah, we have a policy that you do exist, but the actual feeling of taking our place in the world still has not happened, and that's what we want to eliminate. We want to eradicate that feeling of that we don't have to calculate anymore.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, in a nutshell.
And how are you and Nick feeling about it? Like, obviously, you've both been through such a traumatic time as you shared to start with. Like,
Mhm.
has this given you a new lease of hope for yourselves and what you're putting out there for the community? You know, how are you both feeling about it?
Yeah, yes, yes. I mean, you know, I always think, you know, when I know for us, when we go through that coming out process, I think we gain a lot of resilience. You know, so when someone knocks you down, it's like, well, I'm gonna get up again and get up again. So we are quite resilient, but I think for me, it was having people that really cared and just listened and helped us as we, you know, wind our way through January, February, and March. And they were there and they listened and were very, very supportive. And I think that I don't think we could have done it without them, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
So,
Well, yeah.
yeah.
And so how can people find Bobu? Give us the rundown of how people can find from the beginning, and we'll repeat it at the end as well. But
Yeah, it's so we're on Instagram,
yep,
which is Be More Bobu, and we've got a website, lovebobu.com.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's
fantastic.
it.
And I definitely urge people to do it. And it's so simple. The tools that you're adopting and empowering people with are really simple.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
And I think, you know, so I come from Malta. I don't know if you knew that.
I love Malta. I didn't know that. Yeah, I like it's such a beautiful place.
So I was raised in a very traditional Catholic family. Was very back in the 60s. And Malta was just emerging from British colonization.
Hmm.
So this is where I think the resilience comes in, because so as part of the colony, they had criminalized homosexuality in like 1854, but that came from them. But they never did anything with lesbians. I mean, I didn't even know the word lesbian until I left Malta when I was 17. I didn't know it existed. So this whole, I actually wrote a blog about it, this invisibleness that people had for generation after generation. So, and I think, you know, finding that identity took me a really long time. And I think, you know, with what everything that's happened, it's made me put my head way above that parapet. I mean, before I used to kind of slide under the radar. It's not anymore, because when you have something to say, you have to be in people's faces,
Yeah,
not be
yeah.
hiding.
And there's a real freedom in that, right?
There is. There's. It's sort of. It's like when you're a kid and it's Christmas and you think you're not going to get the present you want, but you're really
Yeah.
excited for that. It's that feeling, That's it's like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then you do it. And then so.
When you think about Malta then versus now, how do you feel about, because it is known as being so accepting and stuff. How do you feel about Malta?
I think the progress that was made was unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah,
from literally criminalizing people till 1974, I think,
yeah,
to coming, 20 odd years later and being number one IL. My issue with it is that they've never looked back. They've
right.
never apologized. They've never, all those women who died not knowing who they were because there wasn't even a word for them, who were forced into marriages, who never got to experience being themselves. There was no apology. No apology for jailing people. And, no, there was none of that. It just moved forward without any, like, what happened was happened. And that I think is not right.
Yeah,
I think
yeah, yeah.
they need to acknowledge what happened and how many silent generations there was, so many silent generations of women who couldn't, come out, or because even though the men were criminalized, and you'd say, oh, well, this is great because at least you didn't have to worry about that. But it's almost like a double because you're not criminalized, but you're also not seen. You're
Yeah, yeah,
invisible completely. There's, you're not even human enough
yeah.
to criminalize you.
I mean, that's a whole other conversation when you think
Yes.
about society and history, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Is the invisibility? Same in the UK. It was never women. Women were not even considered. I think it was was it Queen Elizabeth who was like, "Oh, women don't do that" or something.
Exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, it's crazy. Gosh, that it really is a whole other conversation.
Yes.
For now, let's focus on your origin story. I'm
Yeah.
super excited to get to know you more, Luciana. Are you ready to pause and rewind?
Yep. Let's
Here
go.
we go. Take me back. Tell me all about little Luciana.
Okay. So I went to a convent that was run by British nuns. So it was kind of a weird place because there'd be a whole lot of really, really old nuns dying, but then there'd be these really, really young ones who were just becoming nuns. So I don't know what you would call that. And the whole place was literally set up to groom girls to become nuns. And if they
Okay.
failed at that, then you became a wife and a mother. If you didn't fit into any of that, too bad, just keep going. It was also very gender specific. If you were a boy,
Mm.
you followed one path. If you're a girl, you followed another. Even subjects you learned in school were actually part of your gender. I really wanted to be a lawyer, but I was told, and I got all the exams and everything, but I was told, oh, you're a girl. What's the point? You're just going to go get married and have kids. That
Mm.
was, and so don't forget, up until this point, even though I had crushes and stuff, there was no name for them. It was just, I just thought this was me in my head being weird, So I always felt like left out. But then I met somebody who I didn't know it at the time, but he was actually, he had, he was going to America, and I thought, oh, I'm going to go with him. And I did. I was only 17. And much later in life, we ended up having 4 kids, but he also was trans, but he also didn't have the words for it. And I say he because he never actually transitioned. He went through a period. They went through a period for about 4 years, but then decided they'd rather live as male. And I mean, I haven't seen this person for decades. And I raised Nick on my own. And I was still playing quite small, like kind of. And then Nick started questioning. And I thought, what example am I teaching him? Because I'm basically telling him, oh, you have to hide. You won't be accepted. So I was always afraid, of what people were going to think, acceptance. But it was drummed into my head from a very early age and because I wasn't following the path, I was already kind of a problem.
Yeah.
So when he started questioning, I thought, well, this is going to be different. So I said, I have to do something. So I made my first big step, and that was like joining a lesbian book club in London. That was I thought I could do this, and I did it. And it was like, honestly, it was like I was at the head of the pride parade because I was so proud of myself. And then Nick started getting really bullied at school. You know, kids like 12, they know exactly. I don't know how they have this sense. And he got to the point where, and he won't mind me saying this, but got to the point where he got suicidal. And I thought, no, I'm not having that. And so I started working with him about how to deal with people and stuff. And that, I think, was the birth of Bobu. Because
Yeah.
we had someone else from his class who also was going through it. So we'd sit there and talk about it. And so, you know, I really wanted his coming out not to be a big, huge celebration, because he kind of come out and then it's like this anticlimax, right? It's like, okay, now
Well,
what?
yeah, because it's something we do all the time,
Yeah,
right? Because we don't. It's
it's
not.
continuous. But the first time, I mean, you really stress about it and everything.
Mm,
And so I said, just do it, whatever it takes. Just be loud about it.
yeah.
And he was. I mean, he got drunk at my brother's birthday party and got on the stage and announced to everyone.
Okay.
And then everyone's like, "Oh, we knew."
Of course, which also comes with its own issues, right? Because actually we don't,
So I
you know,
think
other
that
people, yeah,
so the combination of my childhood living with this person who ended up in a very emotionally abusive situation that I couldn't get out of, and hitting, you know, having a young child and trying to get away because I had to go from America back to Europe. I had no way of doing that. And so, and then starting again here. And there were so many. So you almost think, okay, what's more important? Feeding the child, right? So coming out and all of that just took a back seat.
yeah,
But there's always that thing in the back of your head.
yeah,
You're not being authentic. You're not being yourself. You're not this. You know, you're almost like
yeah,
treading water. And I
for
felt
sure.
I've done that all my life.
Yeah,
Well,
when you think back to little Luciana, kind
mm,
of like in the teenage years, in those early, acknowledging the crushes, but just think it was you being a little bit weird, you know, is that something that you just had to keep bottled up
yeah.
for all that time? What was diversity and representation in the world? What did that look like at that time when you think,
I think there wasn't even a word for lesbian. There was no word. There was
just nothing?
nothing nothing.
Yeah,
Um, I remember when I was really, really little. If you've been to Malta, you know those parapets, you know, the
mm,
house, and then what you would call it a porch. I don't know what you call it in
yeah,
English, and I remember being there with my mother, grandmother, and all of this, and these two men were walking past, and I was quite really young, and but it stuck in my head, and somebody, there was about 4 or 5 older women, and somebody said, "Oh, look at them," and I looked at them, and I just saw two men. And then I said to my grandmother, I said, "Why are we looking at them?" She said, "Look at their shoes." And they were wearing, is it crocodile shoes? The leather was made from crocodile skin.
okay,
And I said, "Oh," I said, "why are they wearing those shoes?" She said, "You'll learn when you grow up," right? So the other woman said, "Well, we know where they're either going or they've been." And I said, "Well, where are they going?" And somebody said, "Oh, they're going to prison." That was my introduction to gay men.
wow.
Yes. And at the time, I didn't know. All I knew was that if you wore crocodile shoes, you ended up in prison. That's all I knew. So,
How did that make you feel at that? Were you able to put two and two together in terms of the how you were feeling in the background about having these crushes
no,
and what
no,
that
because
looked like?
I was only about 6 at the time.
Okay.
So, but it didn't, nothing computed until I was in America, and I think it was the late 80s. I was in the hospital because they need to take some blood because I was having a kid. And then they called me up and said, oh, you need to come in. And then they explained HIV to me. And that's where everything, look how long it took. Everything started coming together. And I started realizing. So I was quite young at the time. But then the guy with the crocodile shoes, I get it. Okay, now it's all making sense. So yeah, it was a long time. And I lived in Australia at the time, so it wasn't a very progressive. I mean, Australia's fine, but at the time in the late 80s, it wasn't like where people were like now. You could be out and proud.
So it was London where you decided to take the steps and kind of like be out there and bold.
Yes. I mean, I obviously in America, I figured it all out, and things started making sense. But it's also, where do you go? And then you start meeting other moms, and then you kind of start figuring things out. So, yeah, there was, opportunities, and my marriage was a very open marriage, because because when I decided to leave, it got very abusive in terms of emotional abuse. That took another few years to get out. But
yeah. And if you don't mind me asking, how did you find the courage to make that move and leave?
it was actually Nick.
Okay.
It was actually Nick, because he was so sad at the time. He was very little, but because he was just constantly, he had a mother who was terrified, emotionally abusive parent. And I thought, I can't, not for me, for him. I wanted him to have a normal life. And yes, it was because of him. That's what gave me the courage.
It sounds like yourself and Nick are a real team, a unit.
People call us enmeshed, which is quite sad, really. But no, I'm not like a stage mum or anything. It's just, we've been through a lot together, though.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. And, I mean, he's got a partner, but it's not like, but we work well together. We sort of, so it sounds awful, as I'm talking, I'm saying this sounds terrible, but it's normal. It's a normal relationship.
It sounds like beautiful, and the fact that you work together so closely to put out something out there that you both need, that you want to share with others. I don't think it sounds like a beautiful relationship that you
thank
have.
you.
No, not at all, not at all. As someone that doesn't have a relationship with my mother, it makes me. I look at it and I just think that's so wonderful.
Oh, well,
so yeah.
You can always come over, Neil.
Thank you so much.
It's got space.
Thank you. And I know that about you as well from hearing your story, that there is always space around your table.
Yes.
You're always willing to create that for others. And I wonder, within that frame of creating space for others, is how you've created space for yourself as well. You went from these dreams of being a lawyer and wanting to do that to now being an entrepreneur in your own right. And was there a deciding point where you decided to make that space for yourself and to put yourself first and to let your own creativity and dreams and ambitions come through?
Yeah, I think so. Up until 10 years ago, I wasn't very much into. I mean, I had relationships, but if they went past 6 months, I was like, no. I was very scared of commitment. I think that's probably trauma from being in an abusive relationship. Anyway, and then I met Esther, who's my partner. And I have to say, if you put two people on paper and you went, nah, that's never going to happen. She's Swiss. I'm from Malta. Just those two words will tell you.
Yep, I hear you.
But it's worked. And I think I've never had anybody believe in me.
Okay.
And she does. I mean, and it's when you have that in your life, you can do anything,
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. It's she just unconditionally, but she just believes in me. She,
Yeah.
whatever I do, she's like, oh, you can, and it's not performative. She actually does build. Sometimes I feel like a bit of pressure, like, am I going to
Okay.
succeed? But even, with the failure, so I have to say she invested quite a lot of money in Arcobaleno, lost a lot of money, but she's never once blamed me. She said,
Yeah.
well, no, it didn't work. It didn't work. Well, So, yeah, I think that's what changed everything for me.
Yeah.
And she sort of lets me, like I said, I'm a big fan of rubbish TV. It's my therapy because I can just shut down. And so, and she likes to walk. It's, and I say walk, I'm going to rephrase that. She hikes.
Yeah.
So if she says, let's go for a walk, it's not. It's like, and so don't ask me anymore. She's very outdoorsy. I hate the outdoors. I really hate it. I like the beach. I'm good with the beach, but bugs and stuff, no, I can't do it. But she's all about this. So, but it works. I don't know how, but
Yeah.
it does work.
When you were talking about how supportive Esther is, this is going to sound really cheesy, but the song "Wind Beneath My Wings" was kind of like coming to mind as like that. And I think it's amazing when you have loved ones and chosen family around you that believe in you. And I wonder if it's through that love and that belief that you have come to a point where you can believe in yourself and stop blaming yourself for the closure, but also beyond that.
Yeah. That was it. I think Arco was a process, and I think I think when I saw you last, I think it was the beginning of summer. I was still coming through that. I
Yeah.
think almost, but I think for me, what was the turning point, and it's going to sound really sad and everything, but last June, I have an older son, and his wife got diagnosed with cancer. And these two people, they have two very young kids, they had so many plans, so much that they wanted to do, and everything just came to a complete standstill. And I don't know, it just hit me that time is so fleeting, so fragile. You can plan, you can be upset, it doesn't matter, And so I've taken this attitude of not to wait, to just do. I can deal with, whatever's going to happen, but I, I don't want to be that person anymore where calculating risks and stuff, just live, and
Yeah.
and it just was a pivotal point. And then, losing Arco was very hard. And I'm not minimizing what we went through, but the key message for me was that, and even though it was sad, there's also joy within losing Arco because it opened a whole new world that wouldn't have opened otherwise. And we've met such amazing people as well. Even though Arco used to have such brilliant people, but we're now meeting different people. And so, yes, so it's just keeps broadening the world for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that one of the things I like to lean into in these conversations on Pause and Rewind is the fact that we are shaped by our failures as much as by our successes. And it sounds like that's really, really a case here. So really, is it a failure or was it just part of the journey?
I don't know. I don't know. And then what is failure, right?
Yeah.
Because it's such a social construct.
For sure.
Because technically Arco worked. It was a huge success.
Yeah.
But we tend to bring everything down to money. Did it make money? Did it not make money? It didn't make money. Then it's a failure.
Yeah, yeah.
And the saddest part of all is that when you're starting something, there's a lot of enthusiasm. You've got a lot of cheerleaders. When you're closing something down, you're on your own. I mean,
Yeah.
all you have is like these horrible people asking for money all the time.
Yeah.
Like those become your circle of people. But yes, it's very lonely when you're closing something down because, and I think there's also a little bit of shame, like, oh, I didn't really. So I have overcome the shame. I have overcome the failure because I keep thinking, oh, it's, and we did Andrew's queer, Coast is Queer thing. And so many people in the audience were like, "Oh my God, I love Darko," and it really made me feel good because I thought
Yeah.
there's the success sitting in the audience, you know.
Yeah, and it will live on, and it will be a special place for people. And
Yeah.
with I often think with life has changed. The way that people engage with venues and go out and buy tickets and show up has changed, and the world, as we talked about before we jumped online, is
Mm.
relentless, and so people don't always have the headspace or the spoons to necessarily go out the way they used to, and unfortunately, that does affect smaller
Okay.
venues,
Yes.
smaller events. Yeah, so it's not a failure, it's growth, and those two things, the business side of it and the money, that's one thing, but what you put out there
Yeah.
is beautiful and will live on in people. So it's really, really wonderful to hear that. I'd love to ask you about someone who has shaped you the most along the way.
Like a real person or celebrity?
Whatever you want, really. Like, it could be, we all find our role models, and our inspirations in the strangest of places sometimes. So yeah, whoever.
I think growing up, it wasn't my mother or my grandmother, but it was a friend of the family, and she never. When you think about it, she was never married, but she actually had a lot of time for me. And I think just the way she looked at the world. She was very independent for a woman in Malta. That was
Mm.
very unusual. But I think eh, um, Maya Angelou, her story, that was that kept me going. And I read a lot, and so anybody who sort of overcame these like insurmountable challenges, it always makes me feel very like they can do it, I can do it,
Yeah,
type of thing.
yeah.
Uh,
Is that what you were like when you were younger? Like, lots of reading, lots of kind of
that
educating
was my
yourself.
only. There was nothing else. I mean,
Mm.
I didn't quite fit in with everyone, So that and I read everything. I mean, I was reading very age
Mm.
inappropriate books. What was considered in Malta that age inappropriate, because probably now most 10-year-olds will probably be reading those anyway. But
Yeah. Do you still carry the interest in law that you used to carry as a child?
no,
No.
but I have social justice and
Yeah.
people. It just, I mean, again, we were at the summit and I met people from Cameroon and Ghana, and I was like tears. I was like so sad because they live in a world that, like, where just for being gay, they could be killed, and they're talking about how they survive. And I think, how do we allow this to happen? And
Yeah.
if I could, I would adopt everybody, just and to save them.
I mean, when I think about your story, that is no surprise. The fact that social justice is such a cause that it is, of the many causes that fall under social justice that you're passionate about, and the journey. Yes, you didn't end up in law, but maybe you ended up exactly where you needed to be in
Yeah,
terms of your own experience and your and professional lived expertise and lived experience. And that's how you're showing up in the world.
I think the only thing is that I never had a chance to choose my own life. You know, I think that option that choice was taken away from me. I never had that. Oh, this is, I'm going to plan my life. I'm going to do this, be this. I mean, I don't know. So, like, I had to go to therapy because I had a big time trouble as being who I am. And she said to me, she said, it is very sad. She said, because you could have become a lawyer for human rights, but
Mm.
that was taken away from you. You didn't have that choice anymore. You could have not gotten married, lived your life from the age of 18 onwards as a lesbian. You didn't have that choice. That was not given to. And I think that's sad.
Yeah.
And I, don't think anybody should, have their life dictated by somebody else just because they can do that.
I guess this might be like a slightly painful question, but I often ask myself this as someone that's been through um, quite a fair bit of childhood trauma, is that when you think about who you are now and what you've achieved and what you have around you, would you even want it to be different?
I think, yes, I would want to grow up. So my mother's an alcoholic, so I would want to grow up without that because
Mm,
that was so hard.
I can imagine.
And I think it shaped me, but it not, it didn't make me stronger. It just made me tired,
Right.
every
At a
day.
young age, I imagine.
Yes, and so it was, or again, you can't put yourself first because you've always got someone to worry about,
Yeah.
and you don't, and it's not even that, it's that you go home and you don't know who's going to be there to meet you. So you're always with this fear, and what that fear and never feeling safe did is actually became a foundation of Bobo, because I grew up where everything was about safety. Don't run because you're going to fall. It was always this catastrophizing. I wasn't
Mm,
even allowed a bicycle because I might fall, break my head, because somebody a few years back hit their heads and they died. So nobody was allowed a bicycle. So it was always like this cotton wool, but wasn't very comfortable because it was more like steel wool,
right.
sitting there. No, no, no. At school, you couldn't run. So when people say, "Oh, you should take up running," no, because I don't even know how to run. I was never allowed to run.
Right.
So, so I think these little things, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess it's a complicated relationship with safety, right?
yeah,
Because you're here, but those things inhibited your freedom
yes,
so much. But in a way, you're someone that's advocating so much for safety and belonging, but in, I guess, a way that does give you the soft cotton wool
yes,
supportive approach.
yeah. And I think it's that a lot of the times we operate from a sense of fear, and then when you make decisions from a place of fear, what tends to happen is they're not decisions at all. So for me, what I've learned is that when you sort of approach something as a challenge rather than from fear, it it takes a lot of pressure off, and you can, so it's just another challenge you have to overcome versus, oh my god, what am I going to do? So for example, like with these bills, like I'd get emails and I'd go into like this panic, right? Can't open it because, and then when we sort of over time with this Bobu shift, I started using it. I know it sounds cringy, but, and I thought, once you realize that you're just creating a reality that isn't there. See what is real. Not, it's not your anxiety. It's not your. And once that, then I'm like, yeah, okay. And then you get to choose what you want to do with it. Bin it, deal with it, or not.
Are you quite good at avoiding catastrophizing?
I spiral.
Me too.
I really spiral. But I'm getting better.
Okay.
I
Work in
can go
progress.
from someone tells me they're out on a boat to going to a funeral in 60
Okay.
seconds. But I am getting a lot better.
What tools have you picked up over time? Because I'm the same, and I think it's partly a neurodivergence thing with me, is that the spiraling becomes out of control, and worst case scenario, and more than anything, it tends to be when something hasn't gone exactly how I envisaged it.
Because you're losing the control, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what tools have you picked up along the way to help keep that in check?
So there is a Buddhist practice. It's a chant. So I think Tina Turner did it, the Namyo Renge Go. So
Okay.
I use it when I'm going to spiral. I just chant it in my head, and it does ground me. I mean, I can't say it does it for everyone, but it does. And I think it's just that the repetition of the chanting, for me, it takes me out of where my head's going. So I think that I've also heard, like, when you start spiraling, just ground yourself. But how do you ground yourself? What do you do? And I found that this chant actually really helps. This, yeah. I do believe, yeah, Tina Turner used to do it as well.
Yeah, no, I've heard that. Mine is to physically lean against something. So to
Mm,
physically ground myself, to like put my hands
yeah.
on something and lean against it, so that it's the physical grounding, and then breathe. But sometimes
But
those things
I think we'll work on the feel it, read it, own it, because that will also help. I
yeah.
do believe it will. It does stop spiraling.
Yeah, well, I need it sometimes.
Yeah. But
Um,
sometimes, to be honest, sometimes with the spiraling, you end up in quite a weird place.
mm,
Sometimes, just really occasionally, it's like, oh my God, you could write a book with the literally chapters of this spiraling sometimes, you know?
yeah. The worlds you create when you're spiraling. Yeah, it's quite creative sometimes. Yeah, for sure. My final question for this segment is looking back so far, what are you most proud of to date?
I think it's Arcobaleno and Bobo. I think those were the two, that and it wasn't about creating. With Arco, it was about being able to walk away when I couldn't save it. And I think I was proud that I made that decision. Because I'm the type of person who will keep trying to save something even when it stopped breathing. Um, yeah, you can walk. So I was really proud that I stopped at that point because we could have gone another 6 months. But I think for everyone's sake, and especially for my own, it was a proud moment for me. Yeah.
The House of Happiness is London's ultimate sober clubbing extravaganza. We're led and delivered but created for all, whether teetotal, sober curious, or just taking a booze snooze. We love a day rave, and on a Saturday afternoon you can expect banging house tunes, DJs on decks, dancers on podiums, and a fully stocked alcohol-free bar. Flamboyant, bold, with a glitter station to boot. We're all about safe, inclusive fun, and we even have a pre-meet so that you can make new sober buddies before you hit the dance floor. Grab your tickets from Instagram now at House of Happiness Official, and we'll see you on the dance floor. Are you ready for some quickfire questions?
Yes.
What album, book, or movie has had a lasting impact on you?
Lemonade by Beyonce.
What an album, right?
Yeah.
What was it about it for you?
The empowerment,
Mm,
and just to say, I do feel we sort of use empowerment we use that word, we throw it out a lot, but it was just the overcoming of that whole album. They overcame so much, I thought.
yeah, it's a cracking album, and so the message of empowerment and just visually stunning and so well delivered in terms of the messaging.
Yeah, I mean, like literally, I can sing every song of that
Yeah,
song.
gorgeous. What's a saying you live by and one that you put in the bin?
You're not a tree, you can move.
Oh, I like that. Where does that come from?
Don't know, actually. I don't know. It was with my kids because I say, but you're not a tree, you can move. So you do what you need to do.
Yeah.
I can't. And to be honest, you actually used it, and is what I is everything happens for a reason. Because sometimes when that's told to you when you're going through a bad time, it's like, what is the reason? What is
Mm.
the reason? Why am I here? Later on, you could see it, but at that moment, it's not helpful at all.
No, I agree. I think we're all so guilty of using these phrases that are really, really annoying. Yeah, no, agreed. Straight in the bin. What's been the best adventure of your life so far?
Um, Esther and I went on a road trip in America from San Francisco to Ohio, I think, Utah. Yeah, we drove. So that was really good. That was, I
What
think,
what was
that's
what were the highlights?
so. I told you the hiking, the outdoors. So we visited every national park, and honestly, by the third one, all I was seeing was rocks. There was nothing except the one in Arizona with the Grand Canyon. Las Vegas and Route 66. Route 66 was amazing. It was exactly as I imagined it.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, love that. Love
it
that.
was really, really good.
What three words would you use to describe you and your origin story?
3 words.
Yeah.
3 words. Unbelievable. What do you call that word in English? Not spontaneous, but when you just go, like on someone winds you up and you just go. like almost like sometimes I feel like I just go without even looking at what consequences are going to be. Just I don't know what the word is. No, it's just I get so enthusiastic about stuff.
Mm.
I forget to look at the red flags and things like that. I'm getting a lot better though. And I think the other thing is magic. I like to use the word magic a lot. And I
Yeah.
think
What
some parts of my life were quite magical.
magical? So unbelievable, magical, and what's
I
a
don't know
word
what
for
that
that?
word is. Spontaneous.
Spontaneous. Spontaneous.
Mm,
Does that work for you?
yeah.
Let's fast forward a little bit. What exciting things do you have coming up?
Okay, so yes, so we've got Bobu. We're doing some talks and presentations. Nick and I do that really well together, I have to say. So we're doing trying not we're promoting Bobu and getting more and more people to do the Bobu shift, because the beauty of that is that if you do it, then someone else is going to feel like, oh, I can do it too. And suddenly we're actually not living in this place of smallness anymore. And we have, I launched a blog recently. I love to write. I'm not an author at all, not like Andrew, but I do love to write. And so that's quite exciting. And Christmas, I do love Christmas. That's on the horizon.
Love Christmas, and you have quite big Christmases. Well, friends' Christmases, right?
Yes. So
Yeah.
last year, Andrew, Ewan, and Theo came over. So we did like a really nice Christmas. So it's quite cute, some
That's
nice.
so cute. Yeah,
Yeah,
I love a friend's Christmas.
yeah.
What takeaways do you have? A practical takeaway do you have for anyone wanting to create an inclusive space?
In terms of, is that you can create the space, you can get the people in there, but even people who all the best intentions is not going to change. You can't stick a poster or a notice and say you're a safe space. That's not going to work, because the people have to feel safe, and
Mm,
the venues need to be aware of when people are not feeling safe. And in when you have, I mean, we've experienced it ourselves where the staff gets kind of freezes when something happens, so they're not helping you stay safe. And also people surrounded with rainbows and stuff, we're not feeling safe.
yeah, yeah,
So I think it's about creating a practice where you have every step of the way figured out. And I think a lot of people, a lot of places, it's like a throwaway for them, oh, we're a safe space. And people tend to confuse inclusive and welcoming with safety, because you
mm,
could be a very inclusive space, but that does not make you safe. And I think a lot of times if I don't see something rainbow or something, I don't think that's a safe space for me. But they could
yeah.
be the safest place on earth. But if you're not showing me, how am I going to know that?
It's like that age-old saying of trust is earned,
Yeah.
and I think it's the same when it comes to inclusion, safety, belonging.
Yeah.
You need to demonstrate it, but then people need to feel it.
Yes. And I think with inclusion, it has to be people centered. It cannot be about policies. And I think for me, that's where the policies are great, but the policies are not going to save you,
Yeah,
because it can't. And so this is why I think you have to save yourself. You have to know enough to be able to protect yourself
yeah,
and the people around you.
for sure. My final question, Luciana, is this. Do
Mm.
you have any words of encouragement or wisdom for anyone out there to help them get to wherever they're going?
Yes, I think just go. Because in your 20s and 30s, time is very different to the 40s and 50s. You're not even the same person anymore. So don't wait until it's the right time. Or you've got all the qualifications. Just do it. I mean, you'll mess up, but so what? Everyone messes up, and nobody knows anything at the end of the day. Sorry, but everybody, everyone's just going along, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And if I think patient with yourself and kind to yourself, you will get there. But don't put things off. If something's burning a hole, just do it.
I think, yeah, there's so much solid advice that comes off of this question to end the podcast. And that was something that I think so many people need to hear. The time is never right. It's okay to mess up. Just be kind to yourself and do it.
Yeah, just do it like Nike.
Absolutely.
Be Nike.
Luciana, thank you so much for being such a wonderful guest. I'm so glad that we were introduced by Andrew, and I'm 100% supporting you in all your work with Bobu.
Thank you so much.
I think it's brilliant.
Thank you so much for having me, Neil. Really
I
appreciate
hope
it.
to see you in Brighton soon.
Yes, definitely.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you so much, Luciana, for being such a brilliant guest on Pause and Rewind. I took away so much from this conversation. You know, leaning into that, the effort, the mental toll, the physical toll it takes to calculate those risks as LGBTQ plus people. And for Luciana, you know, with setting up Bobu, and what that's all about, it's just like, you know, Luciana says, I don't want to be that person anymore where I'm calculating risks and stuff. Just live. And we do just need to live. We do need to calculate, but in order to be able to navigate those moments, the shifts, the tools that are outlined in Bobu can really, really help you get through those. So I can't encourage people enough to go and check out Bobu. You can check out Bobu over on the website, and it's super. The tools that are listed are super simple and shared. So you can go to lovebobu.com. Some more things that stand out during this conversation was the importance of not making decision based out of fear. You know, that's something that I really took away from this. When our decisions are informed by fear, are they decisions at all, or are they forced? See what is real. You know, JP on the last episode talked about look at the facts. Feelings and opinions are not facts, and the same when it comes to fear. The fear is real, but actually trying not to let it kind of like dictate our decisions, and seeing things more as a challenge. And you can really see the way that Luciana approached that with the closing of Arcobaleno, and moving forward with Bobo as well. And just that closing advice, just go, just do it. Yeah, really important. If you've got something in your brain, in your heart, absolutely go for it. Luciana, I absolutely love this conversation. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Thank you so much for listening. Please do continue to like, subscribe, share, comment, help take these stories out there. They deserve to be heard. Stay tuned for more amazing guests on Pause and Rewind. I've only got a few episodes left of this season, which feels crazy. See you soon. Cheers.